Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sir Hunt on X on this 12th of October 2025, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States of America. Here's everyone having themselves a wonderful day. Still an Arctic blast here in Cincinnati, but it's getting warmer and it's getting better. Warmer weather is coming along the corner, but tonight still another chilly night, and as a result, I still have this thing going up, and it keeps me warm and cozy in this time of year. Display this for a little bit more. Tonight, I do what I like to call a super show for you newbies out here. And what I usually do is I take an historical event and just elaborate on it, because some sport events deserve a show of their own. And that's what I'm going to do here tonight. And it centers around what took place 29 years ago after a chaotic, wild, and crazy buildup, which led to arguably the most anticipated and most talked about fight, not just in boxing history, but you can probably say not just also in sports history, but also of all of pop culture, because for the longest time, the fight everyone wanted to see, regardless of what your background is or whether you're a sports father or not, is when we're going to see Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson. And we finally got it 29 years ago this week at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, after a topsy-turvy, wild, chaotic buildup that involved topsy-turvy careers and lifestyles for both fighters for that 7.5-year period. Now I'm going to talk about the buildup. I'm going to talk about individually and the links, the fight, after the fight, and even after the fight, especially toward Mike Tyson fans, all the myths that need to be shot down, which I will do rather convincingly, because it's not, you make this thing too easy for me sometimes. After Mike Tyson defeated Michael Spinks in 1988, the question was who was next, because he basically, you can probably say at that point, basically cleaned out the division, because we talk about the guys that he had at that point, there's really anybody out there. I mean, he had a mandatory fulfill against Carl the Truth Williams, who won on the Tyson Spinks undercard against Trevor Berbick, but that wasn't going to get Mike Tyson anywhere. And the debate was also whether or not Mike Tyson could elevate himself to the greatest of all time after Michael Spinks, because that was the peak, as we all know. I mean, he got to that peak, he got to that moment, and when he got to that moment, all the questions were asked. As I said many times, the talk of the town that everyone wants to talk about, good, bad, pretty, or ugly. One of the biggest ones, of course, when it comes to Mike Tyson was, could he find a way to get to the next level after he obliterated Michael Spinks, which is what he did in 1988. And at that point, after Mike Tyson did that, here comes a 1984 bronze medalist, actually should have a gold medal, got the bronze medal under weird circumstances. None other than the real deal Evander Holyfield. As Mike Tyson was marching through the heavyweight division, Evander Holyfield was cleaning out the cruiserweight division, and just got back-to-back knockout wins over Ricky Parkey and Carlos De Leon to become the undisputed cruiserweight champ, the first in the short division history. And as a result, the buildup slowly started to begin, because Evander Holyfield said after he unified the cruiserweight division, he was going to move up to the heavyweight division and look to seek the opportunity that he had always wanted, which is to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, which he said that was his ultimate goal throughout his entire life, and he wasn't going to back down out of it. So we move ahead to 89, and that's when the buildup really started to begin. Because after he beat Carlos De Leon to become the undisputed cruiserweight champ, Evander Holyfield started to make the move to the heavyweight division. And while that was going on, the turmoil of Mike Tyson out of the ring, as everybody knows it, started to show, and it started to rear its ugly head because of everything with Don King, the firing of Kevin Rooney, Team Tyson, etc., etc., etc. We know what happened with that. And while that was going on, Evander Holyfield was making his march toward the heavyweight ranks, beating a couple of the Mike Tyson leftovers like James Quick Tillis and Pinklon Thomas. Before 1989, when he really stepped up as a heavyweight, first against the always tough and durable Michael Dokes, in a fight that was a breathtaking, give and take type of fight, exchanges both ways, where that was a night where people wondering going in whether Evander Holyfield could hang with the heavyweights, and he showed that he could, taking the best Michael Dokes had to offer, and basically giving back until he gradually wore down Michael Dokes to get a 10th round knockout. And 3 months after that, it basically was a title eliminator. He faces a tough Brazilian named Jose Adelson Rodriguez, who only had one loss going in. And after a strategic first round, the perfectly placed right cross over the lazy jab by Holyfield, Rodriguez went down, and Evander Holyfield wins that title eliminator, and is basically now the number one contender for Mike Tyson's heavyweight championship. And now everyone was wanting to clamor for the fight between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. Still lots more turmoil to get to, because it was in an ABC interview shortly after that fight. Alex Wallow interviewed both Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. They asked why this fight wasn't going to take place. Mike Tyson circumvented to Evander Holyfield, saying he has problems with the management team, which at the time he and manager Ken Sanders had a bit of a differentiating of opinion, even though both guys wanted to fight. But it turned out the one that had the real problems was Mike Tyson, because we know what happened. He fired Kevin Rooney, sent the old Team Tyson out the door for Don King and those guys. He went, of course, in '89. He had a tougher than expected title defense when he stopped Frank Bruno with 5 rounds, saw him hurt in the first round and a half, and got a nondescript 91-second knockout of Carl the Truth Williams. And it was in that Williams fight, a spectator was observing and watching this particular fight. That happens to be none other than the real deal Evander Holyfield. And what had basically, that was when they really started to build the buildup, because now everybody wanted to see it. I'm not talking about just the boxing community, all the sports communities, pop culture, whatever field you were in, medical, politics, entertainment, Hollywood, you name it. The fight everyone wanted to see, and it started to build up here, was Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson. Now, something funny happened on the way to this. They originally had a pegged fight scheduled for June 16th, 1990. It's supposed to take place at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. There comes this trip to Tokyo, Japan, where Mike Tyson has to make a voluntary defense against James Buster Douglas in a keep active fight. And I think everybody knows what happened on that night. And Evander Holyfield basically told everyone going into that fight, hey, I'm not going to write off James Buster Douglas. I saw James Buster Douglas fight. He can fight a little bit. Let's not act like this is going to be a walkover. Boy, was Evander Holyfield right, because we know what happened February 11th, 1990 in Tokyo, Japan. James Buster Douglas has beat the brakes off of Mike Tyson and threw the monkey wrench, the first monkey wrench of this Holyfield-Tyson buildup. And as a result, James Buster Douglas was the undisputed heavyweight title. Evander Holyfield, who's the number one contender, got the call for the title. Now let me shoot one of these myths down super fast. And this is where Mike Tyson fans show their ignorance. James Buster Douglas did not owe Mike Tyson a rematch, no matter how hard you want to say it. Mike Tyson didn't even deserve a rematch against James Buster Douglas, because Mike Tyson beat the brakes off of him for the entire fight, except for the wild uppercut that put Buster Douglas down. And of course, Tyson fans want to spin that in their cowardly ways. James Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson fair and square, won the undisputed heavyweight title, and no way was Mike Tyson worthy of a rematch. So who gets the next call? Evander Holyfield. Larry Merchant said it perfectly in the post-fight interview after the Douglas-Tyson fight. Evander Holyfield, as the number one contender, had the call to the heavyweight championship, and he activated his mandatory clause, and that's when we had the fight of October 25th, 1990, between James Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield. Here's one thing everybody misses. Evander Holyfield said, I don't care who won the Tyson-Douglas fight. I want the winner next, because I want to be the heavyweight champ. Turned out it was James Buster Douglas. Holyfield gave everybody the warnings that James Buster Douglas could have done it, and he did it. And as a result, we got Douglas Holyfield in 1990, and the wild uppercut from Buster Douglas outside of Ohio to Nevada the perfectly counter right hand by Holyfield. Douglas down and out for the count. And Evander Holyfield reaches his goal to become the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And there's no other way about it. He was a legit heavyweight champion, no matter how hard Mike Tyson fans try to spin it off. And won it legitimately because he did the one thing Mike Tyson couldn't do. When he hit Buster Douglas, he made sure Buster Douglas stayed down, something Mike Tyson couldn't do. And that's why what happened in Tokyo happened. So we have Evander Holyfield now the undisputed heavyweight champ. Mike Tyson's the number one contender now. Roles are flipped. And so the still ongoing chaos from Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson to Evander Holyfield being Buster Douglas is the so-called governing bodies refusing to accept the heavyweight champion other than Mike Tyson because of the so-called baloney long count that took place in Tokyo in round 8, which it was not a long count. Again, the cowardice of Mike Tyson fans show there again. That was not a long count. Buster Douglas got up fair and square, won the heavyweight title fair and square. Evander Holyfield beat Buster Douglas fair and square. And finally, after all of that hoopla, all three governing bodies said Evander Holyfield is a champion, rightfully so. And after all that chaos, he hit the pedestal to become the heavyweight champ. As that was going on, Mike Tyson has two nondescript fights against Henry Tillman and Alex Stewart, two guys that had no business being in the same ring as Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson wipes him out in one round to try to restore his invincibility that Buster Douglas demolished early in 1990 when that fight in Tokyo. And that's when Evander Holyfield, after that took place, signed to fight Big George Foreman. While he signed to fight Big George Foreman, Mike Tyson accepts terms for a title eliminator against Donovan Razor Ruddock of March 18, 1991, a fight he wins on an 8th round TKO under a suspect stoppage. And even though Mike Tyson won the fight going right, I thought he would have knocked him out anyways. But the stoppage was suspect. Tyson was the official contender for the Holyfield-Foreman winner. And we know Evander Holyfield decisioned George Foreman to retain the heavyweight title. And after that, we had Mike Tyson Razor Ruddock 2, and a give or take, breathtaking fight where both guys were just rock'em sock'em robots that saw Tyson win a unanimous decision. And it was shortly after that, we had a second scheduled set date for November 8th, 1991, between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. Every major network, not just a sports network, but all networks, all television, all cable news was ready to cover this super event because it was really built up and highly anticipated because this is the one everyone wanted to see for the longest time. But a funny thing happened on the night of October 17th, 1991. And that was out of nowhere, a fake rib injury by Mike Tyson postpones the fight a second time. And because of that fake rib injury, look, we weren't going to have that fight. And after that, we know what happened with Mike Tyson outside the ring, the legal situation that got him found guilty and sent to prison in April of 92. In the middle of all of that, Evander Holyfield doesn't wait around. He takes a fight against Burt Cooper as a late replacement when Francesco Damiani pulled out. It was in a life and death struggle where Holyfield had the fight under control. Burt Cooper had him nearly knocked out in the third round. And both guys were trading away until Evander Holyfield's sheer will got the 7th round stoppage and a give or take war that was tougher than anyone had anticipated against a late minute journeyman. Although any fight aficionado will tell you just what type of a top fighter Burt Cooper was. And he showed it here, giving Evander Holyfield all he can handle. And at that point, the question now was who was next for Evander Holyfield because Mike Tyson was in the middle of his legal litigation. So there was, of course, you could cut to the young guys, Riddick Bowe, Michael Moore, Lennox Lewis, Ray Mercer, among many others. But something funny happened on that way. Ray Mercer, who was originally pegged to fight Evander Holyfield after Burt Cooper, signed to fight Larry Holmes, and Larry Holmes gives Ray Mercer a jabbing clinic in February of 1992. Evander Holyfield people saw that, and we had Evander Holyfield versus Larry Holmes while Mike Tyson sitting in prison. And on this particular night, it was a nondescript win for Evander Holyfield against a 40-something, and people were calling for Evander Holyfield's head as a heavyweight champion. Wonder if he was ever going to be something legitimate in the heavyweight division. And it was after that, we get one of the next best thing you could possibly get at that time was Evander Holyfield challenging the Young Guns, and enter this young kid from Brownsville, New York, the same town of Mike Tyson, 1988 Olympic silver medalist Riddick Bowe. And Evander Holyfield just won credibility points by default by taking on a young gun. Not some of the 40-somethings were like George Foreman and Larry Holmes at that time, where Holyfield got a lot of criticism for it. So he shot the criticism down. And even though Evander Holyfield lost the heavyweight title, gained a lot of respect because he went toe-to-toe with a young gun who was bigger than him by 3 inches and 30 pounds. They went toe-to-toe and had his moments in that particular fight. Bowe was the rightful winner, but Evander Holyfield won a lot of the critics over, shut all the mouths just because he could hang with one of the young guns and the big boys. And that's what he did when he fought Riddick Bowe the first time on November 13th, 1992. As his career now was going on, a change with him, he fires his longtime trainers, Lou Duva and George Benton, hires a well-known and well-respected Emmanuel Stewart, back then only known for training Thomas Hearns. Mind you, for the fight community, this is before he latched on with Lennox Lewis. He was known for Tommy Hearns at that point. Evander Holyfield hired him, got a rematch win over Alex Stewart, which set up the rematch between Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe of November 6, 1993. And the biggest reason Emmanuel Stewart was vital in this fight is because he got Evander Holyfield to fight the discipline fight in the rematch. Many thought he should have fought the first time against Riddick Bowe. And as a result, he had the 4th and 5th rounds. He had Bowe hurt, looked like he was going to get a knockout. Of course, we know about Fan Man. And as the fight went on, Holyfield stayed his discipline. Granted, despite Bowe landing many more punches in that second fight, Evander Holyfield escaped the rematch as a 2-time legit heavyweight champion of the world, winning a majority decision. And it was after that, well, Mike Tyson's still incarcerated in prison, and really, Holyfield-Tyson was not even on anybody's mind at that point. Evander Holyfield fights a young gun out of Manessa, Pennsylvania, named Michael Moore, and lost a decision based on oddities, because there's a lot of oddities that went into this one, and here's where all the turmoil started to take place. Because it was after that fight, it was revealed that Evander Holyfield developed a shortness of breath, according to respected commissioner, fight physician Flip Homansky, and he's complaining about pain in the shoulder. It was after that Moore fight, he essentially announced his retirement because he went to a clinic. It was revealed his heart had issues. A lot of reasons for it. I'm not even going to dig deeper into that, but he had issues with his heart. And so Holyfield-Tyson looked like it was totally dead because Mike Tyson's still sitting in prison, and Evander Holyfield had just retired after the Michael Moore defeat. But a funny thing happened on the way from 94 to 95. Actually, 2 things happened. First, early in 1995, of course, Mike Tyson gets out of prison. But while that was happening, Evander Holyfield goes to a faith healer, goes to this a religious faith healer who wanted to see his real heart condition. This faith healer basically said, "You're fit to fight." But the faith healer told Evander Holyfield, "Go get checked to make sure." And he did. And he went to Nevada, granted him a license in 1995. In May of 1995, he had a tremendous fight with a tough, durable Ray Mercer in a give-and-take fight that Holyfield eked out a unanimous decision by winning the last 3 rounds. Then the fun begins, because it was shortly after that, Mike Tyson's out of prison, and now he announces he's coming back, and he fights the undeserving Peter McNeely in a nonsensical fight that lasted 88 seconds. And it was after that, shortly after that, in a weird circumstance before this, the night of November 4th, 1995 took place, Fox and HBO was going to have a competition. On the Fox side, it was going to be Mike Tyson versus Buster Mathis Sr., and the HBO pay-per-view had the 3rd Holyfield-Bowe fight. It was going to be one of those, competitive explosiveness for the boxing fraternity and the sports fraternity who loved heavyweight explosions. Of course, oddity was the Buster Mathis pulled out of the fight, and that got pushed back a few weeks. And we had Holyfield-Bowe 3. And as I said the other night when I talked about the Holyfield-Bowe trilogy, looked like it was officially the end of Evander Holyfield, because from rounds 3 through 5 of this fight, he got the beating of his life. And he did have the haymaker left hook that floored Bowe in round 6, only to get stopped 2 rounds later. And at that point, again, another case of Holyfield-Tyson talked about, but it was on life support because Holyfield, now on Holyfield's side, he looked like he was done. So that's what we had here. Fast forward a few months, Mike Tyson fights Frank Bruno for the fake heavyweight championship and wins that. And Evander Holyfield gets a nondescript win over Bobby Ches in a fight that basically he looked old and everyone said, you're done. But it was revealed after that that the Mike Tyson camp approached Evander Holyfield for a fight less than 10 days after Holyfield-Ches, and it was a done deal for November 9th, 1996. Now, two more funny things that happened along the way. Actually, three funny things. First one was Mike Tyson's mandatory was Lennox Lewis. Mike Tyson ducks Lennox Lewis to pay him $4 million to duck him because we know Lennox Lewis was going to beat Mike Tyson in 96. That's why Mike Tyson paid him $4 million to duck him. And he fights Bruce Seldon for another fake heavyweight championship, wins out on a one-round knockout. Guess who was at ringside? Evander Holyfield. Basically saying Mike Tyson was knocking guys out before he went to prison. He's still knocking guys out after. And Mike Tyson gets the one-round knockout. And so we had Tyson Holyfield was supposed to be for 2 belts. But shortly after, the governing body basically said, you fight Lennox Lewis next or we're stripping you of the belt. Mike Tyson basically said you can have the belt because I want no parts of Lennox Lewis. I'm ducking Lennox Lewis. And because of that, after all of that, after all the ins, outs, ups, and downs, all of the turmoil in and out of the ring for both fighters, the fight finally happens November 9th, 1996 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Lots of buildup of this one. I mean, the buildup is up, down, in, out. Probably the most roller coaster buildup in boxing history when you think about it. Because for a minute, it looked like from it was going to happen to it was never going to happen to everything in between. And we talk about going into this fight. The worst thing that happened was the buildup on the Mike Tyson end, falsely accusing Evander Holyfield of saying, I would never fight a convicted rapist. And we know the story what happened to Mike Tyson in 92. They didn't know that was from the mouth of Evander Holyfield's promoter at the time, Dan Duva. And they tried to use it as a spinoff. And Evander Holyfield basically just looked at the camp as to say, you're really going to go there with us? And when they had the face-off after that press conference and the cold, nonchalant dagger, Evander Holyfield stared into Mike Tyson, you had a feeling something might happen. And it was later revealed that Evander Holyfield told his people in the hotel room after that stare down, I got him. I just have a belt to pick up. And that's when things start to get a little crazy because the odds opened up as 25-1 in Mike Tyson's favor, dropped to 6-1, and only one respected boxing pugilist, Ron Borges of the Boston Globe, Blunt said Evander Holyfield was going to beat Mike Tyson, to the laughter and the chagrin of everyone that includes Mike Tyson fans. But he saw something none of us did. Even the guy who put the money on Evander Holyfield to drop the odds because nobody could foresee this coming. We think of what happened to him a year before in the third fight against Riddick Bowe, where he got the brakes beaten off of him and looked nonchalant against Bobby Ches 6 months before this, and how Mike Tyson just wasted Bruce Seldon in 1 round. Many thought we were going to have another Mike Tyson waste. Actually, this was pegged to be so one-sided, Don King guaranteed money back for those who ordered the fight, and the fight lasted less than 3 rounds. But Evander Holyfield had other ideas, and boy, those other ideas were brilliant ideas. Because now we're going to get to the fight. November 9th, 1996, MGM Grand, Showtime pay-per-view, Steve Albert, Freddie Pacheco, and Bobby Ches calling the fight. Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield. Steve Albert said it perfectly. The no intimidation factor, that alone gave Evander Holyfield an opportunity regardless of the odds. So I said, Evander Holyfield was never intimidated by Mike Tyson. I'll touch on that at the end. When you saw the two fighters go into the ring, and I had a revisionist history, I can tell you this from watching this the other night. Evander Holyfield was confident, ready, and when you have that confident smirk the way he does, you knew something was going to happen. Mike Tyson looked like he didn't know what he was getting himself into. And when you have that kind of look on your face, especially for a guy who was known to bully and intimidate you the way Mike used to do, and you're fighting a guy who's confident and not scared, you're in for trouble. And Mike Tyson knew it. Early on in this fight, Mike Tyson jumps out of him, tries to get the early 30-second knockout. Evander Holyfield weathers the early storm, starts to establish himself. But Mike Tyson more than likely wins round one based on aggression, because Evander Holyfield didn't throw much. But the real thing about round one was Mike Tyson charged like Mike Tyson always does. We know that. But Evander Holyfield weathered the storm, stayed cool, stayed focused on the task in hand, and wasn't bothered. That was big. And there was a little exchange after the round where Mike Tyson tried to get in Evander Holyfield's head. That didn't work. So we fast forward to really a poignant moment early round two, where they get tangled up. Holyfield turns Tyson to the ropes, and a little roar took place because people saw Mike Tyson pinned on the ropes, which is something you never saw aside of the James Buster Douglas fight. Mike Tyson pinned on the ropes. A right-left combination, and Mike Tyson is now starting to hold on to Evander Holyfield, and now Holyfield's in control, using his strength to push Mike Tyson back. Everybody thought coming into this fight, if Evander Holyfield was crazy enough to mix it up with Mike Tyson, he was going to get knocked out. He mixed it up with Mike Tyson, all right, but he mixed it up and it was not afraid of him, and he was the one doing the pushing around. He was the one in control early. And at that second round, you start to see little signs of what was about to happen. Because 3 and 4, Holyfield, as Bobby Chiz would eloquently say, went to smart boxing, used his jab, smothered Mike Tyson in clinches, and basically at every exchange beats Mike Tyson to the punch. And for the first 4 rounds, it was 3-0. I had a 3-1 Evander Holyfield after 4 rounds. That's how one-sided that was, to the shock of many. It wasn't the fact that he was winning this fight. He was winning this fight fighting Mike Tyson's fight. I mean, that's the kind of fight Mike Tyson just explodes with a body shot uppercut and you're on the canvas. Evander Holyfield didn't go anywhere. But round 5, a little twist of momentum, a sneaky right hand to the body by Mike Tyson, which has always been his pet peeve. And for the next minute and a half, Evander Holyfield's gassed look, pretty much had the wind sucked out of him. And it looked like the Mike Tyson everyone was going to see showed up, and he started gaining a little momentum as Holyfield, just after that body shot, sort of had to take a deep breath a little bit, and Mike Tyson started to pour it on. And it looked like at that point, that Mike Tyson, the one everyone wanted to see, was going to finally show. But again, a poignant moment at the end of that round. Another combination by Evander Holyfield after all of that by Mike Tyson shows once again he wasn't going to let Mike Tyson dictate the pace. Tyson won the round, clear cut, no brainer. But Evander Holyfield showed once again he wasn't going to be intimidated. The real moment comes here in round 6. The same round, Evander Holyfield floored Riddick Bowe. About a minute left into the round. A left hook underneath in the midsection. And now Mike Tyson is the one sucking for breath. Holyfield starts to tee off with lefts and rights. Then a swing and a miss by Mike Tyson. And a soft left hook right to the chest by Evander Holyfield on the chest of Mike Tyson. And for the second time in his career, Tyson's on the canvas. And Tyson's on the canvas. And to the crazy, to the wild 19,000 plus at MGM Grand, all of them chanting, "Holy, holy, holy," for Evander Holyfield. The so-called baddest man on the planet is on the canvas for the second time in his career. The other time was James Buster Douglas. Everybody knows what happened on that night. And it's from that point forward, Evander Holyfield knew he had him. From there to the end, he knew he had him. Did anything and everything he wanted to. Fought Mike Tyson's fight. If he wanted to use a jab, he used it. If he wanted to beat Mike Tyson in the inside exchanges, he did it. From that point all the way through the next 3.5 rounds, it was all Evander Holyfield. And as Freddie Pacheco said, during one of those rounds, he was fighting like a man, he was fighting with the confidence of a man that knows he had the opponent beat. And Evander Holyfield certainly fought that way. And in hindsight, as those rounds were going on, you can see the body language of Mike Tyson started to get defeated. Interesting moment in round 7, because Mike Tyson fans like to bring this up. As Tyson was trying to come in, Holyfield was trying to slip. The clash of heads, a cut opens up on Mike Tyson. But Mike Tyson, as he was headbutting, almost goes down, ties Evander Holyfield up, tries to pull Evander Holyfield with him. Looked like Mike Tyson was looking for a way out. And that headbutt was pretty much what all that was all about. Because everyone wants to bring up headbutts. Let me remind you, Mike Tyson was the one led with his head on that one. And Evander Holyfield just turned away. You can see the look on Evander Holyfield's face as Mike Tyson was headbutted, looking for a way out. Just threw his arms up like, what in the world is this? Because Mike Tyson was looking for a way out. But after that, rounds 8, 9, and a third of the way through round 10, Holyfield just dictated the pace to his own terms. Then toward the end of round 10, Holyfield puts the pedal to the gas, a left-right, two left-right combinations, an uppercut, and an exchange of right crosses, and Mike Tyson is dead out on his feet. And the bell saves Mike Tyson, which the fight should have been stopped at that point because Mike was down, out, gone, wobbled into his own corner. And as a result, Mike Tyson didn't know where the heck he was. And even when he got up off the stool at the 10-second mark, you can tell that rally at the end of round 10 was just pulverized Mike Tyson, especially the right cross that sent him reeling across the state of Nevada. You knew that was it. And even Mike Tyson knew it. He didn't know where he was after that beating because that last minute of round 10 was you can probably see it was a bigger beating he took on that round than he took the entire fight against James Buster Douglas because psychologically he was gone. And Evander Holyfield knew it. Came out of round 11, a double left hook, the right cross. Tyson wobbles into the ropes, one more straight right hand, and the fight has stopped. And for the third time in his career, with 6-1 odds against him, and everything he went through to get the opponent he wanted, Evander Holyfield reaches a landmark by doing what he knew he could do all along and basically turn on the gas and just beat the brakes off of him. And that was the end. One of the more, not the upset level that James Buster Douglas was, because of obvious circumstances, but this one was close. And maybe we talk about just the surreal, real feel-good story of personal redemption for all the obstacles Mike Tyson and Don King put to prevent Evander Holyfield from getting into the ring with Mike Tyson. And when he finally got him, Evander Holyfield saw his chance for redemption, and he got it. Hit the pedestal for the third time in his career. At that point, joining Muhammad Ali as the only three-time heavyweight champions of the world. And that's how one-sided the fight wasn't even close. Two of the judges gave Holyfield every round. That's to tell you how one-sided that beating was. Now we get to the fun stuff, because here's where I tell the whole world, outside of Bengals fans in Cincinnati, Mike Tyson fans, show their cowardice. Now we have a lot of fun here, because I'm going to shoot down some myths and play this hypothetical for them. Well, let's start with the first one. Everyone talks about Evander Holyfield being on steroids. Did he probably take something to enhance his physique? Probably. Do I know? No. Because I didn't see him put a drug in his body to enhance his physique. I mean, the guy was a gym rat. And if you're a gym rat like that, your body's going to improve. I've seen fighters with worse physiques than Evander Holyfield flunk drug tests in every single which way imaginable. And Evander Holyfield with this physique never flunked a drug test. I don't care what anybody says. Fighters with worse physiques flunked drug tests easier than Evander Holyfield did. And Evander Holyfield passed every single drug test. Was he on probably something to enhance his physique? Possibly. Was he on the stuff that everyone says he's on to enhance his performance? If he was, ain't no way this guy's doing what he did to Mike Tyson. Because I said before, didn't have the stuff, whatever, during that time. But Evander Holyfield was just all wrong for Mike Tyson. And that's something Mike Tyson fans have a hard time accepting as men. Now we go to the second part. Another thing that Mike Tyson fans cry about. Headbutts. You know who else was headbutting? Mike Tyson. Look what happened in round 6 and 7. Both their heads collided. It was Mike Tyson that wound up cut. And the second time, he ran his head into Evander Holyfield and was grabbing onto Evander Holyfield, preventing himself from going down after the clash of heads. Because both guys were running heads into each other. So it's not act like headbutts were a problem. And guess what else was happening in the middle of all those headbutts that Mike Tyson fans like to talk about? Evander Holyfield was given a boxing lesson, a beating, a beatdown, and everything in between. So headbutts had nothing to do with what took place on that night. The third myth was Mike Tyson didn't have Kevin Rooney. You know, Evander Holyfield had 3 trainers since 1992. George Benton, Emmanuel Stewart, Don Turner. Don't give me the stuff about Kevin Rooney in Mike Tyson's corner, because Evander Holyfield went through 3 trainers, 3 high-level, brilliant-minded boxing trainers, and that's what allowed him to become great. If you think George Benton and Emmanuel Stewart would not let Evander Holyfield beat Mike Tyson? Trust me, if he had Benton or Stewart, the beating would have been worse, because they would have had him more than ready, because we know the brilliant minds of George Benton and Emmanuel Stewart, respectively. Evander Holyfield was always going to handle Mike Tyson. Now, would he handle Mike Tyson the way he did that night? No, because we know the force Mike Tyson was. Even Evander Holyfield said it countless times, I would have had my hands full with this guy. Let's get that out of the way. I'm not saying Mike Tyson would have never had a chance. Just saying, if you put me to it 10 times out of 10, Evander Holyfield beats him all 10 times. One reason only, in 2 words. And those 2 words are no fear. Why? Because Evander Holyfield, when he went up to heavyweight, knew he can handle Mike Tyson, and he was never intimidated by the so-called aura, the mystique, or the baddest man on the planet logo Mike Tyson fans put on him, because the guy was just, men amongst boys. There's boys and there's men, and this night, November 9th, 1996, showed the separation. No matter how hard Mike Tyson fans try, he was never in Evander Holyfield's league. Because when you're at the best, fighting the best, having moments where you get pushed, and you're able to dig deep and hold your own, the way Evander Holyfield did in the trilogy against Riddick Bowe, especially in the 3 fights where Bowe was younger and bigger, that alone gives you a psychological edge. And even Steve Albert, who called the Showtime fight, said it before and after. The no intimidation factor. That alone puts Evander Holyfield at level with Mike Tyson. Always had, always will be. Let's not act like Evander Holyfield was some bum of the month, because that's what Mike Tyson fans like to do. This guy was a 1984 bronze medalist. Really should have been a gold medalist when you think about the odd circumstance that got him the silver, or the bronze, excuse me. But this guy, you don't fight the cruiserweight division and become a 3-time heavyweight champ at that point by just, being somebody. Evander Holyfield brought a lot to the table. He can hang with anybody in any era. And the thing with Mike Tyson fans act like, because he blew out Michael Spinks in 1 round, he was going to do the same to Evander Holyfield. Newsflash, Evander Holyfield wasn't Michael Spinks. And Evander Holyfield certainly would have checked out the way Michael Spinks did in 1988. Even Michael Spinks said it to his own admission. Let's not act like Evander Holyfield was just going to roll over for Mike Tyson like Michael Spinks or some of the other previous heavyweights did. Because Evander Holyfield brought a lot to the table, more skilled than Mike Tyson fans will ever give him credit for. Here's the biggest thing that Mike Tyson fans will always miss. We look back, everybody's going to point to after prison. I get it. But let's go back after Michael Spinks, when he told everyone, get out. That's where his downfall began. I think you can probably say that started before then, because a lot of the turmoil started in-house. Didn't make it public, but all the turmoil started then. And from that point forward, Evander Holyfield knew it, and that's when he made the move to heavyweight to chase this. Granted, with a lot of turmoil and in and out of the ring for both fighters, and a long buildup, got to a point to where it was either it was going to happen tomorrow or it was never going to happen, because that's how wild this buildup was. And we talk about this ideology, especially from the morons known as Mike Tyson fans, that Evander Holyfield waited too late to pursue his fight with Mike Tyson. Newsflash, Evander Holyfield had goals to get to become the cruiserweight champion. I mean, he wasn't going to move up to heavyweight till he finished business as a cruiserweight. That's what he waited for. We talk about beating the champions like Dwight Cowie, Ricky Parkey, and Carlos De Leon before he went to heavyweight. That's what happened. And we talk about, I've said this before when it comes to the biggest misperception for both of these fighters. Just because one guy just wipes you out of the face of the earth against everyone, against a guy who a few years before where people were calling for his head after struggling against George Foreman and Larry Holmes at age 40, doesn't necessarily mean that the triangle theory that fight fans like to use is going to work, because it doesn't. There was a reason why Mike Tyson and Don King were the ones that prolonged this, because they knew once Evander Holyfield got into the ring with him, it was over. Maybe the biggest luck out at the time was Mike Tyson losing to James Buster Douglas, because it prolonged it another 6 or 7 years. So the morons called Mike Tyson fans could use excuses, and they still do to this day. Here's a problem. Evander Holyfield was staying active against the best the heavyweight division had to offer. Think about it. Buster Douglas, George Foreman, Larry Holmes, Riddick Bowe, Michael Moore, Ray Mercer, even Alex Stewart, who was still a fringe contender the 2 times he beat him. Mike Tyson was fighting Henry Tillman and Peter McNeely. And remember, when he came out of prison, he only had what, 1, 3, 4, 8 rounds in the 4 fights post-prison before Evander Holyfield. While Evander Holyfield has been a lot of hard fights, a lot of tough fights against the best they had to offer, that alone was always going to give Evander Holyfield the edge, in hindsight. And everybody calls a fight a cherry pick. Probably the biggest cherry pick that went backfire, because when the Mike Tyson camp saw how Evander Holyfield lost to Riddick Bowe and beat Bobby Chiz before they signed this fight, they thought they was going to get a shop-worn Evander Holyfield who they could put a name on a resume, but Evander Holyfield had other ideas, as we know. And that's how what took place 29 years ago this week at the MGM Grand happened. No other way to describe it. And Evander Holyfield, his place in history, forever secure. Top 7 or top 8 all-time great heavyweight. Whatever the criteria is. If I had to put a criteria in my top 8, he'd fit it. To do it 3 times against the very best, from when he went up to heavyweight all the way through the 2 fights with Mike Tyson, the man at that time. Especially when you consider what happened the year before when he fought Riddick Bowe the 3rd time and almost had the brakes beaten off of him and was basically on the way out the door. To have this happen says a lot to what this guy was, the noble warrior, the all-time great, the living legend, Evander Holyfield. And he showed it on this night. Of course, we know what this prompted. Later, the rematch of the ear bite. Evander Holyfield wins the first 2.5 rounds. Tyson tries to trademark left hook, which didn't hurt Evander Holyfield, so that's why he bit himself out. And another thing that kills Mike Tyson fans to this day was Mike Tyson's ex-trainer, Teddy Atlas, told you guys to your face, being Mike Tyson fans, Mike Tyson is going to find a way out of this fight. And Teddy Atlas was right. And that's what another thing that kills Mike Tyson fans to this day. Terribly. If you can't accept it, shame on you. Because the 2 fights showed one thing. Anytime, any place, any era, it's always going to be Evander Holyfield. Just for the simple reason that he was never intimidated. That alone just leveled the playing field against Mike Tyson. Just on that alone, no fear. That will always be the decisive thing that made Holyfield-Tyson even, just for that reason. You can talk about your X's and O's, you can talk about your trainers, you can talk about the skills, all that stuff. But after the no intimidation factor that leveled everything out, the rest is pretty much, actually, let me back up. The no fear was a cherry on the sundae. Everything else was just sprinkles, which now tilts the factor into Evander Holyfield's factor, and Evander Holyfield's side, for the simple reason that he had no fear. He was never going to be intimidated by Mike Tyson. Even if Buster Douglas was going to be intimidated, I assure you Evander Holyfield wasn't. I don't care what happened to Mike Tyson pre-prison. I don't care what happened to Mike Tyson before James Buster Douglas, because Evander Holyfield was doing the same things as Mike Tyson was. And Evander Holyfield, 4 years older, Mike Tyson, a much more sharp-worn body, given the 3-fight series he had with Riddick Bowe. And he still beats the brace off of Mike Tyson. That's where the problem lies with Mike Tyson fans, and they don't see the details almost 3 decades later. Because they play all these hyperboles, they play these hypotheticals, the what ifs, the fantasies against whatever or whoever. Mike Tyson was, I don't want to say he's never in Evander Holyfield's league. I said that earlier. I will pause on that. I'll get to that in a second. Any kind of pushback against a guy who's blowing you out or getting blown out, you're basically gonna win. And that's the problem with Mike Tyson's fans when it comes to him, because they don't see this. Every fight he won was because the other guy was intimidated. The two guys that beat him at this point, which was Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield, won because they weren't intimidated. And as I said, if you're not afraid, that alone levels a playing field against Mike Tyson, and the rest of it is in their favor. And that's something Mike Tyson fans just can't accept and don't know how to grasp reality of, while they resort to excuses, while they resort to cowardice, while they resort to moronism, because they're just nothing more than a bunch of shaming, despicable acts. And they use prison as the excuse. I've seen fighters go to prison several times. Shoot, Bernard Hopkins went to prison and came back a better fighter. Prison's not an excuse for Mike Tyson. The hell it isn't. And Mike Tyson fans, when they use that as an excuse, it's not an excuse. Evander Holyfield was going to whoop him before prison because he was gunning hard for Mike Tyson and hard. Well, Mike Tyson and Don King were making excuses not to have the fight happen. And because of that, that's why the thing got prolonged 7.5 years. And 29 years ago at the MGM Grand, they finally met, and Evander Holyfield just dusted Mike Tyson off effortlessly to win on an 11th round TKO to become a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world and to put himself again as the number 1 heavyweight of the 90s at that point. Of course, we know later on Lennox Lewis took that throne from him. But by that time, even Evander Holyfield was on his downturn. But when you think about what everything that took place with this, the biggest, sometimes we say fighters age, everybody wants to say that. But when you talk about what Evander Holyfield did on this night, and I've said this about several fighters, and I can say this with him easily, the gratification and satisfaction that you can get when everything is stacked up against you and you pull up and you overtake the odds and reach the pedestal at a time when people were calling for your head, that alone should stand for something. And you can nitpick everything you want about Evander Holyfield regarding this fight, especially Mike Tyson fans who are the masters of being cowards at this rate. You just can't deter the fact that he was ready, he was driven, he prepared himself well, and he succeeded. And you can't take it away from him. And Mike Tyson fans can learn from Mike Tyson himself. He said this perfectly. They're going to look at us. They're going to look at Evander Holyfield. At the end of the day, Evander Holyfield beat us. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's time for Mike Tyson fans to get off the high horse, stop the gray, showing their gray beards and their sensitive side, and learn how to accept it. Because a high-level achievement, unexpected at that point, was reached. And there's no way you can sugarcoat what he did. Just beat the bejesus out of Mike Tyson. It was the same way Tyson used to beat the bejesus out of people. How the world flips. And he did it about 18 months after all the health problems, being Evander Holyfield. Did this a year after getting the brakes beaten off of him by Riddick Bowe and people were calling for his head. Did this 6 months after a nondescript win against Bobby Chiz where he really looked like it was time for him to go. And the Mike Tyson camp took this as if it was going to be a cherry pick because of those 3 fights and how those 3 circumstances, and thought he was going to be a shop-worn body. Evander Holyfield had other ideas, turned out to be great ideas, and as a result, he went back to the top of the pedestal in the heavyweight division once again. No other way to describe it. I mean, you can play your what ifs. You can say if this, if that, if this, if that. Doesn't matter. You know, Evander Holyfield, just because he was never intimidated by Mike Tyson, leveled the playing field. Anything else after that goes into Evander Holyfield's favor. Not saying it's going to be a wipeout every time because we know the force Mike Tyson was, but let's not act like Mike Tyson would have just wiped the ring with Evander Holyfield, because I didn't see many people, maybe outside of Lennox Lewis and maybe James Toney in 2003, but that was 2003, wipe the ring with Evander Holyfield. Nobody does that. And if you thought Mike Tyson was going to do it, you have another thing coming. They might just say Mike Tyson, who couldn't knock out James Quick Tillis, Mitch Blood Green, James Will Crusher Smith, Tony Tucker, and Donovan Razor Ruddock in their second fights. If he wasn't knocking those guys out, he should have knocking out Evander Holyfield. Because think about how much energy Riddick Bowe had to expend in their third fight just to get a knockout. And Bowe had to come off the canvas to do that. So y'all need to just chill with all of this stuff when it comes to the so-called Prime Tyson. Because I don't even know what the hell Prime Tyson was. I mean, talk of the town. He was a talk of the town. He was. That everything ends there. Everything ends there because all he was a talk of the town. And Mike Tyson fans try to do all of these hypotheticals and all of these superlatives to try to put him at a pedestal he has no business being on. I pin that more on Mike Tyson fans than him. But it is what it is. You can't change history. The reason why you can't change history, because Evander Holyfield was the one who made history, and he's the one that submitted it and submitted his place in history 29 years ago. And just because he had no fear of Mike Tyson, that was all he needed. Anything else after that was a tip to his favor. No intimidation was the simple reason. And that alone leveled the playing field. And anything else was in Holyfield's favor. Mike Tyson fans need to learn how to accept it. They need to learn how to stop trying to play superlatives, try to play hypotheticals, because it's not going to work. Because it's done. It's done. Evander Holyfield made it done. Evander Holyfield made Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson fan base done. And it was a beautiful thing. Terrific fighters, both of them. I know I get hard on Mike Tyson for a lot of things, but it more has to do with the fan base and the networks that put him on a pedestal. I mean, Mike Tyson. He was that blur that came, saw, and left. And when he left, it was basically it. Anything after that, it was much less a blur. It was much less a walking corpse. And it's not a shot at Mike Tyson, because that's how the fighters of his style were always made to be. And that's why, through the test of time, to all the timeless events, guys like Evander Holyfield are the ones that are like the Timex ticking time watch that just keeps ticking. And that's what he did. I wish I could have another heavyweight fight we could talk about like this again, but it's nowhere to be found. Plain and simple. And if you want to talk about, everybody who talks about fights being marinated, this fight was a case of that frozen dinner you wanted to pull out and thaw out, but you want to put it back in the freezer because you know he's going to eat it. Because for a minute, it looked like it was going to happen tomorrow, to where it was never going to happen. And for many reasons. Maybe the most wild, chaotic, intense, surreal buildup in not just boxing history and not just in sports history. I can say all pop culture, because everybody, whatever your profession was, or if you were a sports follower or not, this is the one you wanted to see. And we got it November 9th, 1996. And it was Evander Holyfield, who was never afraid of Mike Tyson, which leveled the playing field. As a 25-1 underdog originally, dropped to 6-1, beating the brakes off of Mike Tyson to become a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. And his place in history is forever secure, whether Mike Tyson fans like it or not. And as Mike Tyson said, look at their history, look at Evander Holyfield's history. The results are going to always say, Evander Holyfield beat us. That's just the way it is. And on that note, that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I will be back on the regulars tomorrow. If you missed this episode or many of the other episodes, you can catch them on the iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify apps. And as always, make self-care your number one priority in all walks of life. If you take care of yourself first, all the good things will come. If you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. Always take care of you and focus on you, because that's the only thing that matters to you. And on that note, have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Mike Tyson fans, grow up. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.